The Mencius. Like Confucius, Mencius emphasized the inherently capricious world within which we live. But unlike Confucius, Mencius focused less on ritual and more on inner cultivation, and the portrayal of him as sometimes arrogant and ambitious shows that this is an ongoing process. His use of nature metaphors reflects the importance of creating the conditions within which things will naturally grow in better directions. The nature of the superior human is goodness, propriety, ritual, and knowledge. They are rooted in the heart mind. The nature of the superior human is goodness, propriety, ritual, and knowledge. They are rooted in the heart mind. When Mencius left Qi, Chong Yu said to him on the way, "Master, you seem to look displeased. A few days ago I heard you say that a learned person does not resent heaven nor bear a grudge against men." Mencius responded, "That was one time, this is another time. Every 500 years it must be the case that a king will arise. In the interval there must arise one from which an age takes its name. From the zoo until now it has been more than 700 years. The mark has passed, and the time, if one examines it, is proper. Yet heaven does not wish to bring order to all under heaven. If heaven wished to bring order to all under heaven, who in the present generation is there other than me? How could I be displeased?" In the time of Yao, all under heaven was not yet in order. Flooding waters flowed throughout, inundating all under heaven. The grasses and trees flourished. The birds and beasts multiplied. The 5 grains were not yet growing. The birds and beasts pressed in upon man, and the paths made by the hooves of beasts and the tracks of birds crossed throughout the central states. Yao alone was concerned about this. Yao raised Shun to set forth regulations to deal with the situation. Shun put Yi in charge of fire. Yi set fire to the mountains and valleys and burned them, and the birds and beasts ran away and hid. Yu dredged the 9 rivers, cleaned out the Ji and Ta so that they flowed into the sea, cleared the Ru and Han, and opened the Hui and Si so that they flowed into the Jiang. Only then were the people of the central states able to obtain food. Hu Ji taught the people to farm and plant the 5 grains. When the 5 grains ripened, the people were nourished. As for the way of the people, if they have full stomachs, warm clothes, and dwell in idleness without any education, they become like animals. Shun was concerned about this and charged Z to become the supervisor of education. Z taught them using relationships of man. Fathers and sons have affection. Rulers and ministers have propriety. Husbands and wives have differentiation. Elder and younger have precedence. Friends have trust. In the time of Yao, the waters went against their course and inundated the central states. Snakes and dragons resided there, and there was no place for the people to settle. Those living in lower areas made nests, while those living on higher ground prepared caves. Yu was sent to put it in order. He dug the earth and had the water empty into the seas. He drove away the snakes and dragons, and banished them to the marshes. The waters following the earth took their proper course. The Jiang, Hui, He, and Han were thus. The obstacles and obstructions were removed, and the birds and beasts were prevented from harming the people. Only then did the people put their land in order and reside there. Now there are those who, although possessing humane minds and humane reputations, do not grant benefits to the people and cannot serve as a model for later generations because they do not put into practice the way of the former kings. No one has ever transgressed by following the models of the former kings. On Ming or fate, Mencius said, everything is mandated. Ming, one accords with what is correct. Therefore, he who really understands his Ming does not stand beneath a falling wall. He who dies after fulfilling his way has corrected his destiny. It should never be anyone's fate to die in shackles. What I dislike about crafty people is that they chisel their way through. If they were instead like the sage King Yu, when he was moving the waters, then there would be nothing to dislike. As for Yu's moving the waters, he moved them without interference. If crafty people also moved without interference, their craft would also be great indeed. The sage king Shun was a model for all under heaven, and one that can be passed down to later generations. All of this was due to heaven. It is not something that humans could have done. If no one does it, and yet it is done, then it is the work of heaven. If no one brings something about, and yet it is brought about, it is destined. Here Mencius quotes Yi Yin, a sage master who advised Tang, who then successfully founded the Shang dynasty. Mencius's ambition was to become a modern-day Yi Yin. Heaven, in engendering the people, makes the first to know awaken those who know later. It makes those who awaken first awaken those who awaken later. Since I am one of the first of heaven's people to awaken, I shall awaken them by means of this way. Gao Zai, an antagonist with Moist-like arguments, said human nature is like a willow tree. Propriety is like cups and bowls. To use human nature to make humanness and propriety is like using a willow to make cups and bowls, Mencius said. Can you follow the nature of a willow in order to shape it into cups and bowls? You must injure and damage a willow in order to make it into cups and bowls. If you must injure and damage a willow to make it into cups and bowls, then you are saying that you must also injure and damage humans to make them good and righteous. It is surely your words that, leading all people under heaven, will bring disaster to goodness and propriety. The goodness of human nature is like water tending to flow downward. Just as there is no water that does not flow downward, there are no humans who do not have goodness. You can dam and direct the water, and you can force it to remain on the top of a mountain without it flowing down. But is this what water's nature really is? It is what you have done to it that makes it so. Humans can also be made to be not good in the same way. Goodness, propriety, ritual, and knowledge are not forged into us from outside. We have had them from the beginning. What is common to all minds? Principle and propriety. The sages are simply the ones who first obtain what is common to our minds. Mencius said, "The 5 grains are most beautiful of cereals, but if they are not ripe, they are not as good as grasses or weeds. Now goodness also resides only in ripening." It is not only the worthy who possess this heart mind. All people possess it. It is merely that the worthy are able to not lose it. Bo Gi, a specialist in water control, said, "My method of regulating the water is superior to that of you." Mencius said, "You are wrong. Yu's method of regulating the water was based on the way of the water. It is for this reason that you use the 4 seas as the receptacle, but you are using the neighboring states as the receptacle. When water goes contrary to its course, we call it overflowing water. Overflowing water means flooding water, something that a humane man detests. You are wrong." Mencius said, "He who has fully used his heart-mind knows his nature. If he knows his nature, he knows heaven. Preserving his heart-mind and nourishing his nature is the way that he serves heaven."